Hello and welcome to an India Today special broadcast. I'm Gaurav Sawant and with me, India Today's Foreign Affairs Editor Geeta Mohan, and our guest on this special broadcast is Lieutenant General Ingo Gerhartz. General Gerhartz is the Chief of the German Air Force and he's flown for India's largest multilateral air exercise Tarang Shakti. The General himself flew a Eurofighter Typhoon for over 5 hours, landing at the Sulur Indian Air Force Base. General, welcome on India Today and welcome to India for this exercise.
Thanks, Gaurav, and thanks, Geeta, for having me here at India Today.
It's indeed our pleasure, General. But let's begin with the Tarang Shakti itself. Massive exercise. How has the experience been?
Great experience. It's for the first time ever that the German Air Force had an exercise together with the Indian Air Force. And I think it's really great that it's not the German Air Force by itself. We do it together with the French Air Force, Spanish Air Force, and the Royal Air Force. So 4 European countries doing an exercise together with the Indian Air Force, that's really great. And up to now, we are flying now for almost a week together in this exercise. It is a really great experience.
General, explain this to us, the nature of this exercise, because you're flying the Eurofighter Typhoons. India has a wide array of fighter jets from the French Rafales to the Russian Su-30s to the made in India Tejas light combat aircraft. So what are these exercises like? How do all the platforms fly together?
Yeah, we proved that this is possible, even if you have different systems. I mean, we flew already together with the Indian Air Force 2 years ago at the Pitch Black exercise in Northern Australia. We have different systems, we have different procedures, but that's the point. We look for ways how we can cooperate even if we have totally different systems. And if somebody has a different system and flies in totally different procedures, you can always learn from each other because the other one is doing it so differently.
General, how did this come to become a multinational exercise? Was it always envisaged to being that, or was it a slow process? And also your take on the Indian Tejas.
Yeah. When we deployed to Australia for 2 years ago, that was the first time that the German Air Force went into the Indo-Pacific. And at that time, it was already a great experience. Flew together in Australia with India, with Japan, Singapore, Indonesia, a lot of countries. It came to my mind, if we do it again in 2 years' time, we make it even bigger. So if we go to Australia anyhow, we shouldn't just go there and go back at the same way. We should make it even bigger. So this time, we are deploying one time around the world. We call it Pacific Skies. It's one time around the world with 5 exercises. We started in Alaska. That was a typical NATO Article 5 alliance scenario. Then we flew a pilot exercise in Japan. We were part of the biggest naval exercise, WIMPAC. And then we flew the exercise in Australia. And now the last, but I think the most important exercise, we fly here in India, Tarang Shakti. And it was my idea to do this, and I asked France and Spain to do it together with us. So the 3 European nations are going around the world, which is a great signal that we show a European face here in the Indo-Pacific.
So keeping sea lanes of communication open, open navigation in the Indo-Pacific, is that the ultimate scenario that India and these countries are working towards? And would some countries feel threatened by exercises like these?
I think nobody should feel threatened because this exercise is not against anybody. It is in favor of our partners. We show that we are on the same partnerships. Sure, everybody is for free and open Indo-Pacific, but for example, ensuring sea lines of communication, air forces cannot do that, only Navy can do it.
Well, you say it's not against any one country, but China certainly is a challenge. And is that a challenge that is discussed in conversations and exercises on the China challenge? and how to counter it?
The troops are not having China in mind. So when we fly, it's a generic scenario. It's about that we prove that we can work together, not signaling this is against anybody. It's really in favor of our partnerships.
How has the experience been working with the Indian Air Force and these exercises with the Indian Air Force?
It's amazing how professional the Indian Air Force is. They have, I think, the most diversity in systems in the world, and how they manage it. It's really amazing, and I'm admiring how they do it. It's really a different part of the world, but if airmen work together, they are always thinking into the same direction, and it's interesting to see.
Okay, now tell us about your Silur experience, because you've been in India for a few days now, and you're going to be here for another day or two. So what has your India experience been like?
Oh, it's a great country, and you have to be here. I mean, if you read it in Germany, that is this country, 1.4 billion people are living with a lot of young people. You can read that as a number in Germany, but to understand it, you have to be here. To see it, you see how this country is right now moving. You can only feel that, you get the feel of it if you're here. And the variety of the people, the languages, and the food, it's amazing. And I found out already that food is very, very important in India.
In terms of future cooperation and the conversations that the Air Force now, both the Air Forces are having between each other, what's the kind of cooperation that you're looking at, and what's the kind of defense capabilities that the two sides are envisaging for the future?
So first of all, I would like to start on the governmental level. I think this year in October, for the second time, we have this intergovernmental talk. So our chancellor with the main ministers is coming to India. At the same time, the German Navy will do a port call here in India. So you see already on that strategic level that we know how important India is in this region. And for me, future cooperation could be in exercises coming in the future. I cannot say we do an exercise next year again, or maybe it's just in 2 years, but it should not, we call it a one-off type. So we go here, do an exercise, and we never come back. So we should work on a kind of a schedule, how this cooperation is up for the future.
Can we zoom out a little, because we're running out of time, and talk about the conflicts that are now ongoing across the world, particularly Russia, Ukraine, Gaurav, if we could begin with that, because there has been an issue with understanding India's position on Russia. Do you think that continues, or is there now a better understanding of India's position when it comes to Russia?
You know, the German position is quite clear on that. Russia attacked Ukraine against international rules. So we are supporting Ukraine to defend itself. We are second after United States. That means particular for the German Air Force. We delivered missile defense systems to protect civilian life in Ukraine. We delivered a system which is called IRIS-T SLM. It's a missile defense system. I am the one who having the Patriot missile defense systems in the German Air Force. And we gave from 12 we have in total, we gave 3 to Ukraine. And we see it's saving civilian lives every day. So that is something my government will continue to support Ukraine so they are able to defend themselves.
There are some reports that seem to indicate, General, that initially you were giving them defensive systems. Now there are some weapons and systems that are being given which have an offensive capability to strike inside Russia. In your appreciation, will this not, make the war go longer? And if there is a change in administration in the United States of America, would that impact NATO support to Ukraine in your appreciation?
Nobody knows. You know, me as a military person, it's a governmental decision how we support Ukraine, and then it's my task to, for example, we train the Ukraine soldiers so that they are able to operate systems like IRIS-T, SLM, and Patriot missile defense systems, and all the other discussions are on the political level.
But can you shift focus to the other war theater, that's the Israel-Hamas war? How concerning is it that we have a region that is unstable and could really impact how the world works?
Sure. I mean, that's a good example for how unstable the world is right now. I mean, we have instability in Europe, in the Middle East, in Asia, and I think that's what we show with the exercise Pacific Skies 2024 going around the world. We fly with way more than 30 different nations in this exercise overall. And it's in those unstable worlds where you cannot separate Europe from Middle East or not Middle East from Indo-Pacific. It's about partnerships around the globe.
And is that partnership working when it comes to protecting the region around West Asia, especially in and around the Mediterranean Sea? Because you have multiple players now. You have the Hamas, you have the Hezbollah, you have the Houthis who are now firing into Israel.
Can I just add to that also, looking at civilian casualty? How do you manage that? That there are civilian casualties in Gaza and yet there is a war against the Hamas.
So I'm hopeful as a military commander that our political leaders around the world, that they will find solutions in soon time, that we have a situation again where there is a stable situation. Right now I think the talks for Gaza, they are in a couple of days.
Yes.
And I'm really looking to it with a lot of hope that they will find a solution.
And finally, if we could just focus a little on, cyber threats. For any defense force across the world, the biggest challenge now has become cyber security and cyber threat particularly. How is Germany handling that challenge?
I think everybody has to handle that challenge. Societies nowadays are so heavily dependent on digital means that we are all susceptible to some cyber threat. I saw it in India. You can do digital payment wherever you go, which is really, I admire this system. So in armed forces, like the Eurofighter, there's a lot of computers. So you really have to protect your system. And I wouldn't say against this or that threat, you just have to protect it.
General, what's your biggest takeaway from exercise Tarang Shakti? What do you take back with you to Germany?
I take back that we can work together. Even if we have different systems, we are flying in different parts of the world, but we prove that we can work together.
Right, on that note, General Gerhartz, thank you so much for joining us here and coming to our studio. It has been indeed a pleasure. Gaurav and I loved the conversation we had before the interview and over here in the studio as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.